What's going on, Bottom Line viewers? It's Mitch here, joined by Dilly Vanilli. He's back. He's here for his first playoff recap, and he's been a little lazy when it comes to the recaps.
What?
There's something called, he's going to some work or something.
Yeah,
I'm out here putting in the work for the Bottom Line View. We're gonna do that right now. We're gonna recap Packers, Giants 38-13 for the Packers. Very surprising second half of football. First half, pretty entertaining overall. Very, very entertaining end of the first half. And then we had a very dull second half, and we'll discuss that. Packers move on to the next round. They will take on Dylan's Dallas Cowboys, and that is where we're going to start. As a Cowboys fan, let's just start off by saying, who did you want to win this game more? Who are you more afraid to play, honestly? Do you think the Cowboys still hold the edge going into the matchup? And what impressed you about the Packers?
Honestly, coming into this, I wanted the Packers to win. We've played both teams, the Giants on 2 occasions and the Packers early on in the season in Lambeau Field. And I've seen what we can do in order to beat the Packers. I mean, there's certain ways against their defense where you can easily go ahead and make big plays on them. Of course, their cornerbacks aren't anything special. There's a bunch of injuries going around there. And to me, when it comes to a Packers matchup, it's about both offenses versus the weaker defenses. When it came to the Giants, although I would like to say, man, we can go get our revenge, we played them twice, and we've been kind of stuck in this situation both times. So I wanted to play a defense that's not as good compared to the Giants' defense, because the Giants' offense is their weakness, and the Packers' weakness is their defense. Of course, what I saw was Aaron Rodgers, of course, being a beast all the way through. Well, more second half. Of course, he can throw a Hail Mary because that's like his number one thing. But
Hail Rodgers.
Hail Rodgers. I think when you search it in Wikipedia or Google, when you search Hail Mary, it'll just revert you back to Aaron Rodgers. But he knows his receivers, he knows his game plan. So I think that the Cowboys are going to have to study up on that. But I certainly wanted to play the Packers more than I wanted to play the Giants.
Okay. So you brought something up that was quite interesting, the matchup of the Green Bay Packers defense versus the offense of who they're playing.
Right.
And to beat the Packers, I think you need to be able to expose those receivers, expose their defense going down the stretch in these playoffs. If the Cowboys can do that, they have a good chance of winning. I thought the Giants would be able to do that to a certain degree. That is why I actually picked the Giants, and that was my only game that I got wrong in the wild card weekend. Now looking at it, I probably should have just went with the Packers because they were the hotter team going into the playoffs. But before, I thought, kind of like how the first half unfolded. I'm like, Giants have a pretty good defense. They're going to slow down Aaron Rodgers, and I just feel like Eli Manning will make enough plays in this game for them to win. But the second half happened, and it just kind of unfolded that way. But I thought that the Giants' offense would be able to move the ball. I guess I was wrong. I think this is more about the Giants' inept ability on offense. They've struggled all year long, and they just couldn't get it together when it came to playoff time. And it just seemed like the Giants were constantly on the field on defense, and there just comes a certain point when your defense is playing very well, but that offense is eventually, an offense like the Packers is eventually going to take over and start scoring some points. And that's what happened in this game. Aaron Rodgers took over 25 for 40, 362 yards, 4 touchdowns, 0 picks, and a tweet from Stephen A. Smith saying he's the best he's ever seen. Don't quite agree with that, but he's one of the best I've ever seen. Eli Manning, 23 for 44, 299 yards, touchdown, interception. Interception, throw that out the window. Didn't really matter. I mean, it was at the end of the game. 299 yards. He wasn't very effective in this game. The offensive tackles in particular were pretty bad. Flowers got beat a lot, but a lot of times, even when he came up with some situations on third down, missing receivers, his receivers definitely didn't help him. We'll get to OBJ in the whole boat situation in just a second because I feel like a lot of fans of the Giants are going to be pissed off about that. After this game, hashtag Bieber curse, trend on Twitter. But Aaron Rodgers, I think that Aaron Rodgers versus Eli Manning, I think Aaron Rodgers was the difference in this game, to be quite honest with you.
Well, I mean, to me, that defense for the Giants is really good, and they always know how to play a good game. It's the offense for the Giants for me that just is like, wow, they can't do anything. They can't move the football. They obviously have no run game. Their run game was Paul Perkins, 10 carries for 30 yards, and the receivers just weren't able to step up. We couldn't make the big plays. Huge drops by Odell Beckham. And then when you come over here to Aaron Rodgers, you know he's a great quarterback. Postseason, he's got a little bit of momentum. He knows where to find his receivers and where he needs to be, especially at home. The temperature was a big factor for me. 14 degrees outside, probably a little cold, you know? I know in New York, it's obviously cold as well, but you're playing outside in Lambeau Field. It's going to be a little bit of a difference. And Aaron Rodgers is used to that, knows his receivers. Devontae Adams, Cobb had 3 touchdowns in his first game back since.
Okay, so Cobb was weird because he didn't really get into the game plan into the game period, really into the second half. Like the second half, he started to take over, and I think a lot of that was because DRC got injured early in the game. Yes. And he's usually their slot cornerback. And once he was taken out, Cobb was feasting. I mean, the whole offense opened up. Even without Jordy Nelson being there, it seemed like DRC was kind of the key to their success on defense because their pass rush was awful in this game. A lot of people were saying that they were trying to contain Aaron Rodgers, not let him outside the pocket. And that, like, there are certain plays and situations that you want to do that. But at the same time, you can't let the guy sit there for 9 seconds on a touchdown play and throw the ball.
Times where I was just like, oh my God. There was
like
one.
He's kind of like moving a little bit, but he's not escaping anybody. He's just kind of standing back there. The offensive line was amazing for the Packers. If they continue to get this protection, they're going to rip up any defense, like no matter who it is. I mean, you need to get pressure after Aaron Rodgers. I know you want to contain him, but you need to pressure without losing containment. You can't just go like wild dogs at him, but you can't just stand back there and let him throw like he's Tim Tebow. I mean, there's a difference there, right?
There's a big difference, especially with Aaron Rodgers. You got to give him all the. There was one play I saw in the first quarter where at least 12 seconds were off the clock, and he went and scrambled, ran back inside to go back out, finds Jordy Nelson. Like, these are easy plays if you get more pressure on him. You can't just step back and let your defensive corners get at him.
Because especially with Aaron Rodgers, it's like he has if you're going to give him 5 seconds with no immediate pressure, you then have to account for 3 seconds where he's going to escape the pressure and probably make a throw. It's like 8 seconds every play he's throwing the ball. It's ridiculous. I mean, this guy is probably the most special quarterback I've ever seen in terms of his talent.
Elusiveness.
His talent is ridiculous. I mean, he runs outside the pocket. This is why I named him the MVP this year. I was like, this guy, you just watch this guy play. He's dodging people. He's doing a spinorama around the defensive end. Then he turns around. He throws a sidearm halfway across the field. Then Jordy Nelson picks it off the ground. Perfect, accurate pass. Like, guy is amazing. I mean, he's Aaron Rodgers, and he deserves a lot of credit. One play where I thought that actually his receiver kind of bailed him out was that Chuck Hail Mary. I mean, it was an amazing throw. It was at the end of the half, but Randall Cobb to push off that DB, launch back and catch it 2 feet inbounds. That was an incredible play. I mean, that was a great play. And I think that was the biggest play of the game, honestly.
Because you're going into halftime thinking 7-6. You got an opportunity to go into halftime if you're the Giants and be like, man, we're only down 1 point. If we can stop them going into the second quarter or in the second half, we can make big plays and win this game. But with that touchdown that the Packers scored at the end, it's now 14-6. They've got a little bit of momentum, and they've got the ball. You know, a little bit of it changes the tide. And there was a couple of plays where I was like, man, the Giants had an opportunity, but the Packers just ran away with it.
Yeah, the Giants had a lot of opportunities in this game. Like somebody brought up in the comments section, there's actually a lot of talk right now. A little bit about Aaron Rodgers. Anime fan 92 said Aaron Rodgers is the most talented quarterback I've ever seen. As a Pats fan, I still believe Brady is the greatest, but Rodgers is the best I've ever seen. So I think he's differentiating between talent, pure talent, and career. Okay. Giants receivers had a lot of drops, especially in the first quarter. That is very true. I mean, Odell Beckham dropped a couple. You brought that up. there was some big plays to be made by the Giants, and their offense just didn't do it, which was shocking to me. That was the most shocking part of the game because I'm like, okay, it's playoff time. This might be a shootout if it has to be, because I think the Giants can move the ball. I think they have the offense, the skill positions to kind of get after that secondary that's banged up. But ultimately, I mean, they couldn't do it. There was a lot of pressure in the second half from guys like Clay Matthews, Julius Peppers, some blitzes. And another guy brought up, Nick, here that the Giants had 5 sacks on Aaron Rodgers. That was because there were coverage sacks. He was holding on the ball for like 6 seconds, 7 seconds, and then he finally gets sacked. And a lot of them were blitzes as well. The Giants tried to play too many 4-man rushes and just try and get after him. And against that offensive line, the offensive line's way too effective, way too good to really just send 4 all game and not just play vanilla defense all game long. It's not really going to work against Aaron Rodgers, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, you bring it up. Sorry. When it comes to the Giants, you got to put a lot of pressure on Rodgers. It just didn't get it done. And, I know there's 5 sacks, like you said, but he's elusive. He's going to find a way to get outside and create some kind of tension, find Devontae Adams. He didn't even have Jordy Nelson for most of this game. He got hurt in the first quarter, or first or second quarter. Maybe it was the second. But, he only had 1 catch the entire game. He had to use certain receivers and find certain plays, and it's Aaron Rodgers for you. This is the kind of guy we're seeing. I think it has to do with a little bit with the Giants and what they were bringing to the table, but you got to give Aaron Rodgers credit. He knows exactly where he's going to go and where he's going to find his receivers, and the Giants' defense paid the price.
One guy here said, if they did that to the Giants' defense, imagine the Cowboys' defense. I think the biggest thing for the Cowboys going into next week, is that their offense is not only going to be playing offense, but it will also be playing defense at the same time. I think they're going to try and hold on to the ball as long as they could or can, like they did in 2014. Very close game. I think that Packers team was better overall, had a better defense. I think Rodgers might be playing a little bit better right now, actually, but I think the Cowboys are probably about the same as that team. I mean, I think they have a little bit better of a defense, but it's going to be interesting. I think, again, you're going to need to get pressure after Aaron Rodgers. I think the Cowboys will struggle a little bit in pass defense. I think anybody would struggle in pass defense against the Packers. But I think if the Cowboys can get some sustained drives with their run game, that will be the most important thing, and I'd expect a shootout in that game going into it.
I mean, for me, like I said, when I'm coming in here, it's both offenses. Both defenses, to me, don't really play all that well. Dallas's defense is a little bit more stronger, in my opinion, than the Packers. So I'm not saying that they're going to do great, but I think they're a little bit more stronger when it comes to the Packers. And for me, if you put pressure on Dak, you might be able to get something going. But I think Ezekiel Elliott, he ran over them the first time. I think he can do it again. And if you find certain guys on key situations like Cole Beasley, throw in a little Bryce Butler your way, Terrence Williams, of course, Des Bryant. There are certain guys that can make big plays against these corners against Green Bay. And the key thing for me is that home field advantage. So there's a lot of things.
Home field is kind of it helps the Cowboys. Don't get me wrong, but I think it kind of helps both teams in a way because it's a dome feel. It's kind of.
I'm saying in the sense of you don't want these guys to play in the coldest temperature possible.
Yeah. I don't think the Cowboys would want to go to Lambeau at this time of the year. That's right. But I think that in a way it helps both offenses because it's kind of a warm environment and it's not super cold, snowing or raining or any of that.
Right.
So other than Aaron Rodgers, I mean, there are a lot of other studs in this game. We talked a lot about them extensively. Obviously, you're going to have to. King on the Giants side had the only real big gain through the air. Ty also had a 51-yard catch. King had the 41-yard touchdown. On the other side, Devontae Adams, 125 yards, a touchdown. He really came on in the second half, stepping up for Jordy Nelson. That's going to be key for them next week. Jordy Nelson seems to have a pretty serious injury. We're going to keep up to date with that. Ty Montgomery was banged up in this game as well. He ran for 11 carries for 27 yards. I kind of expected that the Packers wouldn't be able to run the ball in this game, and I was pretty much correct on that. I didn't expect the Giants to be able to run either because they haven't ran on anybody. Cobb, like we said, took advantage of DRC's injury and had a good day with 3 touchdowns. Jared Cook is a guy that kind of stepped up early in the game, 5 catches for 48 yards. Defensively, interception from Randall. He tripped up on himself and on the run back. Julius Peppers had a sack. Clay Matthews had a sack. They move up in the all-time sack rankings for all-time sacks. I'm pretty sure they're pretty high up there.
And Clay made a good play in the fourth quarter when he strip-sacked Eli Manning, and nobody knew what was going on, so that was a good play as well.
Yeah, that was terrible. That was just like, Giants, what the heck are you doing?
And that's it. Like, you don't hear the whistle blowing. Come on, man. That's a number one. Come on, man, play. Right,
yeah, Landon Collins, again, the biggest beast on the field in terms of defensively. 9 tackles and a sack. This guy is one of the best safeties, if not the best safety this year in the NFL. Consistently amazing. And, yeah, those were the big playmakers of the game. Did anyone really stick out to you, Dylan, or any comments you got?
Landon Collins, beast. I like Kobe Sensabaugh trying to fill in for DRC. Obviously they still lost, but I thought that was good. Micah Hyde got burned a lot in that first quarter, so it's going to be interesting for me to see how he matches up against somebody like Des Bryant. Because Odell Beckham, if he makes those catches, they could have been a different game, but he got burned. Micah Hyde got burned quite a bit. Randall made some good plays. Of course, Peppers and Matthews, always the guys. Clinton Dix is going to be a guy to look forward to in the game next week if he can cover some guys. And yeah, those are my guys I want to look forward to for next week. Like, see what kind of plays they're going to make.
I think we need to look at Randall Cobb next week. That's going to be an interesting matchup to see what they do there. It's going to be interesting to see what the Cowboys do in terms of their corners. If they put Brandon Cobb on.
I think Claiborne is about to come back. I think Claiborne will be healthy.
If Claiborne plays, then that's going to be interesting because I'm not sure if Jordy Nelson is going to play. So that's a big factor there. Also, Ty Montgomery, I think, is a huge loss if they indeed did lose him. He did. I think he came back like later in the game, but I'm not sure. But he's banged up for sure.
I'm not exactly 100% sure if he's healthy or not.
Yeah. Jordy Nelson though is a big loss if he is gone. I would suspect, like, looking at the game, probably like Brandon Carr on Devontae Adams, Randall Cobb would probably get Scandrick, and then Claiborne would rather probably get somebody, whatever the other guy is, depending on
Allison. It would either be Allison or if Jordy Nelson gets in there.
Yeah,
I'm not really sure. That Cobb Carr matchup is going to be disastrous if he doesn't know how to play football. I'm sorry. I'm a Cowboys fan, but Jesus, this man can't play football. So
Christian Vasquez wants a shout out, and then he just retracted his message. But anyways, shout out to Christian Vasquez.
Yo, you got the shout out, bro.
You got the shout out. So it's the Packers, Cowboys, 38-13. Actually, Dylan, let's just talk a little bit about, because you weren't on any of the recaps. So anybody impress you out there in the wild card round? Any teams that you think from the wild card can do damage? What games are you looking forward to next week? Any comments on the divisional round going forward?
All right. Well, I'll go through my recaps of each one. For Oakland and Houston, look, that was a bum game for me. Both teams were inept in both ways. Of course, with the Raiders, no Derek Carr, no win. Houston, you're going to get absolutely demolished by the New England Patriots in the divisional round. It happens every year in the playoffs when it comes to these two teams. They won't do it again, especially with a Brock Osweiler team. And then we had the Seahawks last night against the Lions. Really good first 3 quarters, and then the Seahawks just went out there and played their football the way that they wanted to present themselves as against the Falcons. I don't think they're going to beat the Falcons. I think the Falcons are way more stronger on the offensive side of the football, and they had a really close matchup earlier on in the season. But through the first 3 quarters against the Lions, I saw a lot of things that could easily be, easily could be taken from the Seahawks offense and defense. There were certainly things that they need to fix up if they want to beat the Falcons, but I don't see them doing that. Steelers, of course, they looked great today. They absolutely destroyed the Dolphins. This is the first playoff game that all 3 big guys with Big Ben, Le'Veon Bell, and Antonio Brown were in, and they destroyed, especially Le'Veon and Antonio Brown. They were crazy good. Big Ben did get hurt on the play before the last kneel down.
That's ridiculous, man. A Big Ben and these phantom injuries. Honestly, I feel like he's not even hurt. They're just trying to like distract their opponent for next week.
Just like here's some hype. So he has a quote unquote ankle injury. So we'll see how that goes, but I don't think it's going to really affect the game at all. It is against Kansas City. That'll be, for me, besides the Packers and the Cowboys, I think that'll be a really good divisional matchup. Mm-hmm. So stay tuned for the Sunday games because those are both Sundays. And the Steelers' offense looked fantastic. So we have the playoff matchups. It's going to be really interesting. I think the divisional round will probably be the best round besides the Super Bowl. I mean, because it's only one game, but I think there's going to be a lot of great games. The only one I see being a clunker is the Patriots and the Texans because there's no game there. But it'll be interesting for sure. Yeah,
the spreads came out after the game. Can you guess what the spread is for the Patriots-Texans game?
Man, I'm going to say -8 is the spread.
Double that.
16 points. Oh my God.
Bro, the Patriots are -16. The Cowboys are -4.
Ooh.
The Falcons are -4.5. And the Steelers, surprisingly, are -1.5 going into Kansas City. So interesting spreads right there. So if you're looking forward to betting next week, that's going to be very interesting. Hope you guys enjoyed this recap. Packers, Giants. The Packers move on to play Dylan's Dallas Cowboys, 38-13. Aaron Rodgers steals the show with 4 touchdowns. Thanks, guys, for watching. Subscribe to The Bottom Line View for more recaps of NFL playoff games. Thanks, guys, if you already have subscribed and recently subscribed. We really appreciate it. We've been moving up fast over the past month or so. Thanks, guys, for sticking around, and peace out.